Impressed with Doug's credentials and his experience, and we're very, very lucky to have you, Doug. So very much appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I don't have anything for old business or new business. Staff and officers report. Chris, any report?
Yeah, just briefly, Mayor, the Joint Review Board met on our TIF district, and they made a favorable recommendation to the board. It will be brought to you along with copies of the minutes and some revisions that need to be, some tweaking, if I may, to the development plan at their recommendations. I should add that to the board here by the end of the month. And at the same time, we'll be putting the PowerPoint presentation that was given to the joint review on the village website as soon as Linda and I can work something out and coordinate on that. Also, I want to comment and just make a note again. Tomorrow night we do have the public hearing on the two zoning matters that we have for properties that we're rezoning from residential to retail business and that are located along Route 12. That's all I have tonight.
Questions? Chris? Okay, Linda?
Yeah, I do have an update for the board. We have an opportunity that's come up this year to possibly sponsor the turkey trot that takes place every year. The turkey trot is organized by Star Runners, and it benefits the Wauconda Island Lake Food Pantry. And what I'd like to do is bring this forward to discussion for next Tuesday's COW to talk about some of the possibilities for this. Great.
Questions? Thanks, Linda. Mayor's report wise, I'd just like to again recognize Doug. We look forward to working with you. Our near term, we're going to, the committees are going to be producing products, obviously, for the issues that the community is faced with. Next committee report that's actually going to be due out is on the noise ordinance. So that's in legal now. So we'll each one of these items, we're going to be working through our committees, and we're going to be bringing them back to the board to work through these issues. So that's going to be the order of business in Wauconda. Do we have? I know there's no committee reports, but there's some comments.
Yeah, just welcome, Doug. Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Doug, welcome. Look forward to working with you. One thing we can just about assure you and promise you here, you won't be bored. I do have an announcement. The Building and Zoning Economic Development Committee meeting, November 12th, 5:30. Committee members, you can make it. And Linda, I did have a question for you. Could you explain the Dominic's lease, how that relates to what we've been reading in the newspapers about Safeway selling all the Dominic's interests off? How does that affect the lease?
Well, we contacted two people that are very instrumental in the grocery business, and both of them came to the consensus that this really, the selling of Dominic's by 2014 will not really affect the village of Wauconda because our lease is with Safeway at our Dominic's. So I have just a little overview real quick that I'd like to share with you. Safeway purchased Dominic's in 1998, so that was about 15 years ago. They purchased it for $1.2 million and took on the debt. Billion dollars, and took on the debt. They started out with 116 stores, and they ended up with 72 stores in the 15 years, and one of the stores to go away was the Wauconda Dominic's. About 80% of the 72 stores are leased, and some people would say that the lease would most probably be beneficial if the landlord went ahead and bought them out and re-rented that area. But for us, with our Dominic's, there's such a large amount of space that's available that it wouldn't make any sense for them to do that. So both parties are saying it really won't make a difference. It won't push anybody's hand one way or the other as far as whether it's going to benefit us. They have so many bigger fishes to take care of right now if they want to close down 72 stores in Illinois. So we looked into it. We're going to be working and meeting with Mike Mallon in the near future to talk about how we can possibly work with the Village of Wauconda to get some of our vacant properties, some interest in our vacant properties. But that's basically where we're at.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, and welcome Doug. I look forward to working with you as well. And then the only announcement I have is that there will be a communications committee meeting on Tuesday, November 5th at 5:30 p.m.
No other announcements?
I do, actually, an announcement that Public Works Committee meeting will be next Tuesday at 5:30 here at Village Hall.
Welcome, Doug.
Welcome, Doug.
You're still smiling.
Okay, any public comment? Yes?
Oh, I have a few unopened issues. Maria Weisbrook, 25583 Wilson Avenue. There was a couple things open with the police department, the overtime, the 8 hours of, 8 people paid 2 hours of overtime, how that was handled. I'd like that to be followed up by the police commission. Additionally, I believe there's been a lot of personnel, I think you're in charge of the police commission, personnel transfers. And from what I understand, we were being more methodical about procedures in the past 4 years. I'm hoping that somebody will investigate that these were done methodically and they weren't for political purposes. There was a method to the madness. People are being promoted for certain reasons. They're being made detectives for certain reasons. They've been transferred to shifts for certain reasons. I would just like that followed up on. I'm hearing a lot of complaints, so I just want to make sure that we're not going back to politics as usual or some other craziness. I want to make sure there is a method to the madness. So I want that followed up on.
Ruby
Additionally,
actually has an answer to your first question as we discussed that, so if you want to just tell him that it was not overtime or anything like that, it's a comp time issue.
Comp time under the union contract?
Oh,
Yes.
was it posted for them to have everybody have an
That
opportunity?
I don't know.
I
know
just want to
that-
make sure proper procedures, there's 8 people paid that our taxpayers, comp time is money out of our pockets regardless. I want to make sure that there was at least proper procedures were followed, so everybody had that opportunity.
If they're directed to be at a location, and it's after their shift, there's a minimum of 2 hours under the union contract.
So they were directed.
I don't know.
That's
the
all, I
circumstances.
just want that
That's what the
clarified.
union contract.
8 people were here, we have 2 hours each, that's all I want. If they were directed, why were they directed? I mean, it's just, we were supposed to be saving money by placing him in place. What was the purpose? So just if somebody can just follow up, I'd love that followed up on. It's not a lot of money, but it seems like kind of crazy for the first 2 days in office. So please, I understand that if they were directed, great, why were they directed and what was the purpose, and have that followed up on so that kind of stuff doesn't happen. Additionally, last meeting, we brought up the IT person the IT Zeta was thrown on the bus no matter what anybody says. I have 19 reasons of what the status of the IT situation was at the time. Rule 101 for a boss is not to say something or have things said about somebody that's not here or an IT department that wasn't here. You let a gentleman speak without facts. I hope you had the facts and are aware of the background. That kind of stuff is not the way to move forward. You don't say something about somebody or have somebody allow people to comment on something that they may not have full knowledge of. So unless you are completely briefed on the status of the IT system before Stan sounded great. He actually was pretty good about just backing off. I was very surprised you let the meeting go the way it was last month. If you want me to read where it was, the 19 items, I'd be happy to, but I realized that there was some money approved in the previous administration to make improvements. That stuff should be recognized, and we should be very cautious about having facts before allowing people to say other people that aren't present did something. That's very, very, very like a 101 thing. So I wanted to make mention of that because I didn't have facts at the time. I couldn't stand up and say, wait a minute, what are they? But I know the board approved some stuff back in November for IT improvements, and that you may or may not have been aware of, but that's something we should be cautious for in the future. Because you're trying to be very steadfast on going forward. So that was a little disturbing at the last meeting, that somebody wasn't here to say, wait a minute, we did this, this, and this, and same with the IT person. So hopefully that doesn't happen in the future. And then the last thing, the TIF thing all of a sudden has become a Facebook thing. And I'm positive that this has been going on for a long time. So perhaps people, since they're just getting knowledgeable now because of Facebook and such, is there another meeting where people can ask questions about the TIF district? Because I know enough to be dangerous, and I don't want this to become something that it shouldn't become. Is there another meeting, Chris, or is there a public meeting, or is there a forum where we keep the best forum for people to ask questions before it becomes something that everybody's scared of? I mean,
Sure. Well, number one, we're going to put the presentation that was presented to the Joint Review Board. Once again, the Joint Review Board consists of the taxing bodies and whoever attended to it. We had,
I can't hear you.
so, at any rate, and so we had, that presentation will be on the website shortly. And the next thing is, the next public meeting is actually a public hearing that will be a special board meeting on November 20th. That would be the opportunity once again for public to make comments and so forth.
so that's like a question and answer thing before a vote. We don't vote on it. People think we're voting. We're not voting on
No,
this.
there's
This is
no
just
voting. That's
right, exactly. So if people have questions that they're very concerned about, can they reach out to somebody directly, or is there another meeting where it'd be best for everybody to come and say what's going on?
They can reach out to me anytime they wish, in between now and the board meeting on November 20th.
Right, right.
Also for perspective, Chris, would you like to comment on how long this process has been going on?
Well, if we want to go way back, it started back in 2006 when the village began looking at whether we should do a TIF district or a business district. Now, one time we were considering a business district for the downtown area, and that went away. And then more recently, when we were doing the comprehensive plan update last year, we discussed identifying the triangle area as our TIF area, as a potential TIF area. So in January, the village board authorized the beginning of that, the process. So we've been working on this process now for 10 months.
Actually, in talking with past mayors, they've actually been working on the TIF concept since the 60s.
Well, no, I agree, and I just say, all of a sudden, there's been a buzz, and I
Right, so
want to
it's
make
not-
sure it's, I want to make sure
It's
everybody.
been recent, but actually this has been a really long-term
Exactly,
process.
so I want everybody just to be able to air out there, whatever they're concerned about, and have an avenue for it.
Other questions? Yes?
Chris Casey, 1471 Sutton in Wauconda. I didn't hear the answer about the TIF at all, so if you could just tell us what the meeting date is, and is it open to the public
You
to
can stand
attend? I
up.
couldn't hear
Say
you.
it louder.
Use the microphone.
Give him a microphone or he can sit back.
I will try to shout. The next public hearing on the TIF will be November 20th. It'll be a special board meeting that the board will be hearing. Prior to that, we will be putting on the website, the village website, the the PowerPoint presentation that was presented to the Joint Review Board. And that's what I think you may have missed.
Other comments, questions? Yes?
Yes, Mark Kennedy, 1203 East Bonner. I have a question for Chris. Chris, could you give us the status of the donations that were given for the TIF district by various businesses? The village had reached out to some of the businesses that would benefit from being in the TIF district, and we realized at least one sizable donation in that respect. Have we continued to reach out to possible businesses or developers that would be that would benefit from the TIF district?
The answer is yes. We have received an additional $500 contribution since Mayor, you left office, and another one that had pledged money went bankrupt, and so I'm not expecting to receive this contribution, and so that's the status on that. Collectively, we received $18,000 in monies that are applied to our TIF efforts.
Also,
Is the
Chris,
list of those people and companies available, is that included in the PowerPoint or Canopy? a list of all the donations, just so we can,
It's not part of, the PowerPoint presentation is geared towards statutory requirements that are set forth in formulating a TIF. So it talks about the process and how we met in August, and we had a public meeting in August, we had about 30 people turn out, and we had another meeting in September, and then a third meeting, a follow-up to joint review in October, just last Wednesday. So it's focused on how we have met the statutory requirements for forming a TIF, and that's what this is all about. There's, the statute sets forth, it calls it a redevelopment plan, and we refer to it commonly as a TIF district. It's statutory, it's a redevelopment plan. There's no development plan set forth other than to comply with the statutes.
but just for full transparency, can the board and the public be aware of the list of people who have donated?
Who have made a contribution?
Yes.
How would you like that?
Yeah, it's posted on the web with the rest of the TIF information.
Also, some additional information you might want to put on there is what the potential costs of setting up the TIF district are, and what percentage of that we have realized through donations to defray that cost, thereby not utilizing taxpayer money.
Okay.
And realistically, what, Bill Smith from 240 Regency Court, and realistically, I'd like to know what the benefits we're going to, what you foresee the benefits are for having gone through this process, why we're going to do it. Not statutory, what you see as the benefit.
It's in the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Yes?
Monica Knigge, 1203 East Bonner. I would also like to welcome the new village administrator, and I would also like to ask how much he makes us at. I can
Yep,
guess it.
it's public knowledge, and it's 120.
120?
120, yep.
Okay, and I'd also like to ask if you or anybody on the board knew him before he was interviewed.
I did not.
I did not know.
Okay, great. And I'd also like to ask about the village, or the finance director that was here last week. If you or anybody on the board knew him before he was there.
I did not.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Nor his partner.
Pardon?
There's two. There's Stan and Dave.
You- So
None of us knew any of them.
None of
you
us.
didn't know him?
No.
Even though he works for government, so you didn't know?
Say that again?
You never met him or heard of it, you didn't know?
No, we
Okay.
hired him through GovTemps.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Yes?
Yeah, one more comment, Marketing 1203 East Bonner. I'd like to, I thought it was a great exercise last week talking about the IT position and the software that we are using. I'd like to commend the board in the past having stepped up and realized that there needed to be some upgrades in the system, and that you realized that in the budget you set aside $50,000 to upgrade the system. I'd just like to point out too that that system has been working, and that there was some question last week on the fact that there were upgrades that the village paid for that we didn't use. I'd just like to clarify that. Was that something that was said?
Yes. The
And-
question was asked by trustee Arnswald, and it was answered by Mr. Helgerson. He said yes to the question.
There is. Could you
So
elaborate?
included in the maintenance fees and the maintenance of the system, that is, the
That is-
upgrades are included, annual, actually every upgrade, so regardless of what cycle it's on. That was included, so you paid for the upgrades, but the upgrades were never executed on our part, so it was the village's side, it was not the supplier's side. That was
But
the issue with that.
The upgrade, the maintenance fee is only used for when there's a maintenance issue.
It was part of the overall contract, so the overall service agreement, the SOA, so the complete agreement for that vendor to us, that was included in the contract, as I understand it from Mr. Robertson.
And you know, as you go along, there are regular, what they call service packs that are sent out by the software company that can be utilized by the purchaser of the software. So as you go along, those pads, just like Microsoft or anybody, it sends out free upgrades, if you want to call it, to their software. So those were used as they went along. Some of the concerns, though, are some of those upgrades were not compatible with, like the police department and the SCADA system. So those are things that the finance director had pointed out to the board, and the board realized the fact that that these upgrades needed to be done, and that they had planned for that upgrade to be purchased.
Okay.
Is that correct? The board did know that, in fact, is that true?
I don't understand what your question is.
That, in fact, that the system was working, that we were working toward getting an upgrade.
Do you mean that it was already allocated? That money,
Right.
that was already allocated in the budget for that, the maintenance for the upgrade?
I don't know.
You don't know whether that was in the budget or not?
I don't know if what you're asking is in the budget. I'm not sure what you're asking.
I'm asking if there was $50,000 allocated in the budget for software upgrade from 6.5 from Springbrook.
Yeah, and I think that there was some money set aside for a wish list, and I think that's on it, but there's more items on the wish list than there is money. So that's an issue that has to be addressed.
That's exactly true, and the board worked with the finance director and our IT people to prioritize by what budgetary monies were being used, and that was not a priority item in the last budgeting cycle.
Okay.
Is that true?
I mean, you're dealing with a new board here, and I think
Well, actually,
if you have
we're not.
individual questions,
No,
that's fine. But, you know, there's gotta be limits on you've said a 10-minute, you've gone actually longer than the meeting has. But we gotta set, you know, hear your comments, accept your comments. I don't know what else you wanted to say.
I just want to say that the board knew that there were upgrades being proposed, and that there was money set aside for that.
Does anybody have any insight to add?
I think the only thing I can recall, Mark, is I know we had talked about it in the SCADA system. From what I saw last week was the 17 revisions that we're behind on. See now, and from what Stan was saying, that was, to me, that was for the finance itself. Now, the SCADA system, I know we had some issues with that, and we were working on getting that rectified.
It's a separate system.
Right, and that's what I mean when you just brought that in, the SCADA in with the, you know, the finance.
Well, there were two upgrades that were proposed. One was for the software upgrade, and another one was for the phone system upgrade.
Right.
Correct?
Phone system's on there too. And I guess my perspective on this is a general perspective, the same thing I said last meeting, the same thing I've said all along. Looking backwards should only be good for if you're trying to fix something. Going forwards, we know what we have laid out here, so I don't see the benefit of trying to look backwards to blame somebody or whatever. There's no value in that. The value is looking forward to see what value are we going to get from fixing something.
But
and
in
what's the way
fact,
forward.
you did blame somebody
Right,
last week.
right.
Exactly, that's.
No,
And you look
no one
back.
blamed anybody, as far as I
Oh, yes,
can
you
see.
Yes, they did, it came right out.
When the question was asked, though, of who's responsible for that, Stan, who's the part-time finance director, said that's who generally is responsible for it, right? So, but that, again, that's why I pointed out, and my comments directly following that comment were, we need to look forward. We can't keep looking backwards, because that's not gonna get us ahead.
All I want to say is that the board was fully aware that that system was at a 6.5 version of the Springbrook, and that the finance director did let you know over the past 2 years that that system did need to be upgraded. So,
Other comments from the board? or Insight?
The only thing I'll say is that I did know that it was not the most current. I don't know which version, you know, I've never worked with the IT manager, so I don't know, I probably don't know as many specifics as you do and maybe some other people on the board. I do know we wanted to put some money into that. I don't know the extent of the problems, so.
and the fact that that system was working.
It was working.
Okay.
Maybe not optimal,
Right.
I don't know the outcome.
And that's the reason why the priority, it was a lower priority, because the system did work. It didn't have all the bells and whistles that we wanted, but in fact, it did
But
work.
nobody pushed to get a new one either, so, so if it didn't get on the priority list, and if it should have been, according to Stan, the interim finance director, then perhaps that should have been pushed ahead of signs or some other things, if there was a problem, if we were way behind. That's how I feel, but I know that we want to do better than having obsolete equipment and systems, but it is working.
Right.
Other comments, questions, insight from the board? Okay, other questions? Yes?
Steve Schaefer, 2263 Trail Site. At the last meeting, there's something, I don't know whether it was said by you or somebody on the board, or it was just, I guess the question is concerning an IT person. Is that a department where the job is farmed out to a private company that comes in to do it, or do we have an IT person?
Yeah, we contract IT.
Has there been any consideration in light of all the work that has to be done, because it sounds like it's a very big project over however long it's going to take, to getting somebody in, hiring somebody who's an IT person for the village with all the work that needs to be done?
The concept's been brought up, but it's gotta be staffed yet.
Okay, is the board looking into that potentially, with all the work that has to be done? So we have somebody who's always looking out for our interest, a person who's in the village working for all this versus somebody from an outside company. I know it costs money, but, and we're trying to save, but, with something like this, this is too, I would think, too big to let it go again and we get behind the 8 ball.
So we're gonna evaluate what options look like, and so that's something that's still in staffing, and once the staff is done with that, then they bring it to the board for consideration. But they gotta staff it first.
So for right now, it's an outside company
Great.
that's gonna do it.
Yep, we're continuing the contract that existed.
That might be a first great project for our village administrators.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Knight?
Yes.
Trustee Bartini?
Yes.
Trustee Starkey?
Yes.
Trustee Marzano?
Yes.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.